Ever wondered if penguins could get a sunburn? Well, they can't, but the Great Auk, their northern cousin, probably could have. Yes, you heard that right. The Great Auk, a flightless bird that was once a common sight in the northern hemisphere, was more at risk of sunburn than its well-dressed relatives down south. Picture a penguin. Now imagine that penguin trading its icy Antarctic home for a sunny beach in the North Atlantic. That's the Great Auk for you. Unlike its tuxedo-clad cousins, the Great Auk probably needed to slather on a good deal of SPF to handle those northern rays. It's a funny image, isn't it? A bird in a sun hat, lounging under an umbrella, sunscreen and wing. So, how do we know so much about a bird that's been extinct for almost 200 years? Stick around, you'll find out. You know, the Great Auk was a bit like the dodo bird. It left us too soon, but it sure left a mark. The Great Auk, a flightless bird that once thrived in the cold climes of the North Atlantic, met its unfortunate end in the mid-19th century. But unlike the dodo, which simply couldn't keep up with the new predators introduced to its island home, the Great Auk was hunted to extinction by US humans. Imagine that! We loved their feathers so much that we, quite literally, loved them to death. And let's not forget about their eggs. They were quite the collector's item, you know. But before we start feeling too guilty, remember, this was a time when people didn't fully understand the concept of extinction. We've come a long way since then, haven't we? We now understand the value of biodiversity and the responsibility we have towards our fellow Earthlings. This understanding has prompted efforts to keep the memory of the Great Auk alive. For instance, the Great Auk has been commemorated in many ways. There are statues, books, and even an award named after it. The Great Auk Award, in case you were wondering, is given out by the Audubon Society for outstanding service in the field of bird conservation. Talk about a bird that continues to inspire even after its extinction. And let's not forget the scientists who have dedicated their lives to studying the Great Auk. They painstakingly collect and analyze every bit of information they can find about this extinct bird. Their efforts have given us a wealth of knowledge about the Great Auk and its life. So, while it's true that we can't bring the Great Auk back, we can certainly learn from its story. We can strive to ensure that no other species has to face the same fate. So while the Great Auk might have taken its last flight, its memory has certainly not been grounded. If the Great Auk were still around, it could have probably landed a role in Happy Feet. Let's take a moment to appreciate the Great Auk's star quality. You see, even though it couldn't fly, it was quite the swimmer. And with its tuxedo-like feathers, it could have easily given Mumble, the dancing penguin from Happy Feet, a run for his money. The Great Auk's charm and unique characteristics have not gone unnoticed in popular culture. It's been featured in several works of literature. In fact, the Great Auk's tragic tale of extinction was even highlighted in a novel by the name of The Last Great Auk. The novel beautifully captures the heartbreaking journey of the last known Great Auk, but it doesn't stop there. Our feathered friend has also made appearances on the silver screen. Well, not exactly, but let's just imagine for a moment. Picture the Great Auk in the animated movie Finding Nemo, swimming alongside the friendly yet forgetful Dory, helping her navigate the ocean's currents. Or maybe, as the wise elder in The Lion King, sharing nuggets of wisdom with young Simba. Can't you just hear it saying, "Remember who you are"? And let's not forget about the Great Auk's postal fame. This charming bird has found its way onto postage stamps in more than a dozen countries, including Canada, Denmark, and even the Faroe Islands. Now that's what I call first class. In the midst of all the fun, it's important to remember that the Great Auk story is a somber reminder of the impact human actions can have on our environment. But by keeping its memory alive in our stories, films, and even our mail, we can ensure that the lessons learned from the Great Auk's tale are never forgotten. So, while the Great Auk didn't quite make it to Hollywood, it's still a star in our books. Feathers, feathers everywhere, and not a bird in sight. The Great Auk, our flightless friend, was once a common sight in the North Atlantic. But now, all we have left of this fascinating bird are its feathers and a legacy that continues to shape the world of wildlife conservation. Now, let's dig into the meat of the matter, or should we say, the feathers of the matter. You see, the Great Auk had such a thick, warm layer of feathers that it was hunted to extinction for its plumage. Imagine the scene: a chilly North Atlantic night, a roaring fire, and you, snuggled up under a feather blanket. Sounds cozy, right? Well, that's exactly what the people in the 18th and 19th centuries thought too. So much so that they hunted the Great Auk until there were none left. Talk about a feather frenzy. But you're probably thinking, just how many feather pillows could you make out of one Great Auk? Well, let's not get carried away. Despite their size, these birds were not exactly feather factories, but their extinction was a wake-up call, a stark reminder of what can happen when we take nature for granted. Because of the Great Auk, people began to realize the devastating effects of overhunting. It sparked a movement, a revolution in the way we think about wildlife and our responsibility towards it. Organizations sprung up worldwide, dedicated to the conservation of endangered species. Laws were passed to protect the animals that remained. In the wake of the Great Auk's extinction, a new era of environmental awareness was born. So, although the Great Auk is gone, its legacy lives on. Its extinction was a tragedy, but it also served as a catalyst for change. It taught us a valuable lesson about the fragility of nature and the importance of preserving it for future generations. So, the next time you see a feather pillow, spare a thought for the Great Auk. Because of this bird, we learn to value the life of every creature, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. And that, my friends, is a legacy worth remembering. So, what do we say to a bird that's not just winged it, but taken the whole flight? Well, let's start with a tip of the hat to the Great Auk, our flightless wonder. It's one thing to be a bird that can't fly, but it's another to be a bird that's made such a lasting impression without ever leaving the ground. Our friend the auk was quite the trendsetter, donning a beak that was all the rage in bird fashion. Feathered tuxedo? Check. And while it might not have won any awards for aerial acrobatics, it was the Michael Phelps of the bird world, gliding through the sea with the grace of a ballet dancer. Let's also remember the Great Auk's starring role in history. From inspiring the dodo's Hollywood career to leaving a legacy in feathers that's still remembered today, this bird was no small auk accomplishment. But let's not forget the most endearing quality of our friend, its awkwardness. Just imagine a bird that walked like a penguin, looked like a puffin, and swam like a seal. Now that's a bird that knew how to stand out from the flock. And so, we chuckle and we learn, we remember, and we honor. The Great Auk may be extinct, but it's far from forgotten. And with that, we bid our feathered friend a final goodbye, or rather, awkward farewell. Well, that's all the time we have for today's flightless adventure. It's been a hoot, hasn't it? We've journeyed through the fascinating life of the Great Auk, a star in its own right, with a story as captivating as any Hollywood blockbuster. From its unique flightless existence to its untimely demise, and finally, its enduring legacy in feathers. I hope this deep dive into the world of the Great Auk has been as enlightening for you as it has been for me. Remember, learning is a journey, and I'm thrilled to have you along for the ride. Now, if you found yourself chuckling at the auk's antics or shedding a feather or two over its poignant story, why not share the love? The magic of this channel is in the sharing of knowledge, and every single like, share, and subscribe means the world to us. So please hit that like button. If you enjoyed today's content, share this video with your friends, family, and fellow history buffs, and don't forget to subscribe to Charlene's channel for more delightful, humorous, and informative videos like this one. Remember, every like, share, and subscribe helps keep the memory of the Great Auk alive. Until next time, keep your wings flapping and your beaks chattering.